that first opening. Always got some recording now. It's always great, isn't it, to hear learners being put at the forefront, and the Learning and Work Institute always do that really well every year, so thank you to them. So good morning, I'm Rachel Owner and I'm the National Co-Chair of NATECLA, who's one of the conference partners today. Yeah, and I'd just like to congratulate Learning and Work Institute for putting on such a great selection of speakers and sessions today, actually, and I'm particularly delighted to chair this session. This session aims to reflect on the longer term lessons for adult basic skills from the experience of delivering provision during the pandemic. In particular, what aspects would be beneficial to keep and develop further. We're going to hear from two organisations about their experiences of delivery during the pandemic and their future plans. We have Simon from Islington Adult Community Learning, and we have Hannah and Mike from Elat. Well, they're giving us a wave. Good morning, guys. Well, the pandemic has certainly had a significant impact on basic skills provision, bigger than any policy funding or qualification form I think has ever really had, probably put together. It's taken tutors and learners alike out of our comfort zones. It's taught us so much more about technology and online teaching in an incredibly short period of time. But you know what, I think it's demonstrated a true resilience in the sector, and that's something that I'm particularly proud of. For our learners attending online sessions, there's been stories of challenges. Yes, device, data poverty, real challenges for lower level basic skills learners engaging in online classes. But, you know, there's also been so many good news stories of learners flourishing online and developing their skills more successfully than they did in face-to-face classes. So a bit of a mixed bag. So anyway, enough of me. Let's hear from some of our practitioners here on the coalface during this time. And I'd first like to introduce Simon Fuller, who's the Curriculum Manager for English and Maths from Islington Adult Community Learning. Welcome, Simon.
Hi all. Yes, thank you very much, Rachel. Let me share my short presentation. Hopefully you should be able to see this. Is that okay, Rachel? Has everybody got that? So yeah, hi everyone. My name is Simon Fuller. I'm the Curriculum Manager for English, Maths, ESOL, Family Learning, Community Learning Engagement, various other things at Islington Adult Community Learning. I'm also a literacy teacher, specialise in kind of entry two, working with lower level dyslexic learners largely. So what are we going to do today? You know, the session aims, the idea of this is to think about the longer term lessons for adult basic skills. During the lockdown, we were approached, Islington Council were approached to be part of a research project to explore the ongoing and potential effects of the COVID pandemic, specifically on adult learning. And it was a comparative research project comparing the impact on the UK with Afghanistan and the Philippines. So it was it was a really interesting project. They were looking for a partner in the UK to work with, to interview learners, to interview managers, to interview partner organisations, and to interview teachers. The project was led by BALID, which is, if you've not heard of it, is the British Association for Literacy in Development. And one of my colleagues, Katie Neal-Jones, is on this call at the moment. So if you've got any kind of specific questions about the methodology, all of that kind of stuff, then Katie will be the person to go to. I'll give you a link at the end of this to BALID if you want to find out a bit more about that. The comparative research report is about to be published as well. There's some fantastic findings. Obviously, the situation in Afghanistan played a huge effect as well. But just, I guess, to say that some of our colleagues that we were working with in Afghanistan, I think they're all safe and well. Some of them managed to get out of the country before the takeover. So, but those the findings are really, really interesting. And we were asked by Rapal, the research and practice in adult literacy, and particularly Tara Furlong, who is I think, chairing another session at the moment. So that's how we got involved. Trying to move the thing on, not doing it for some reason. Let me refer to my notes. The findings, the headline findings, if I can move it on, were suggested that in the UK, those that were working in community learning in Islington, we felt that the pandemic had had a higher impact on ACL than other education sectors. This was, for example, there didn't seem to be any central government guidance. Lots of the stuff was focused on schools, universities. Adult learning was kind of forgotten. In terms of funding, the GLA were really helpful towards us, but they didn't really, we didn't really get any guidance from central government. We picked up some Chromebooks, for example, but we had to beg and borrow those from our colleagues in the schools provision in Islington. So there was very little kind of coming from central government. Within ACL, the impact we thought was disproportionately high on the most marginalised learners. So those learners in lower level ESOL classes, for example, new to ESOL, entry 1, entry 2 level English and maths classes, people with very basic digital skills were really affected by the pandemic. Now, you know, I'm not telling you anything that you don't know. You guys were there as well, but this is academic evidence that, that we found in this report. However, the pandemic did highlight the role of ACL, adult community learning, as a frontline community service, and that's how the council regarded us. They wanted us to carry on talking to our learners, contacting them, not necessarily making any great educational strides, but just making sure that everybody was fit and well, guiding them to other services. We were referring people to food banks, we were referring people to medical services, all of those kind of things. And the council regard that we were providing a valuable link to some of the most marginalised in our community in Islington. Trying to move it on. It posed us a considerable challenge, of course. It disrupted our service. It presented a steep learning curve that our teachers needed to what do you do to a curve? To climb a curve, maybe. We responded really quickly. However, looking back at it now, within I think the first week, we managed unofficially to move most of our classes onto Zoom. So where learners could access Zoom, we got onto Zoom. The council digital services team caught up with us eventually, and we had to make it official. And then all the kind of issues with Zoom and all that kind of stuff that I'm sure lots of people went through. But we converted most of our classes to online at least within 2 weeks. We adapted our curriculum. We had immediate challenges of learners that were learning online, digital skills, doing all of those kind of things. And one of the lessons learning that we learned very quickly was that IT, digital skills, was no longer a discrete topic to be studied, but it was an essential component of adult learning. Cross-cutting across all areas, and we had to embed it. And we've done we worked with ETF. Actually, there's some ETF funding. So we did a project last year with ESOL learners and embedding them with digital skills, and that's continued into this year, and we're spreading that across maths and English learners as well. However, since the project, we still have venues that have not yet reopened. We don't have any of our own buildings in Islington. We work out of libraries, community centres, children's centres, schools. Some of those venues haven't yet reopened. One of our major centres is the Arsenal Stadium, the Emirates Stadium. There's a community learning centre there, but that's not reopened because it's still a testing centre, so that's had a huge effect. However, other partner venues are really keen to restore services. Community groups, community centres want us back in there providing services. But some venues have lost capacity. Children's centres, for example, in Islington, they're integrated with NHS medical services. So we've lost some of those rooms because they're being used as, for example, maternity services, midwifery services, and those kind of things because they've been moved out of hospitals. Some teachers are reluctant or unable for whatever reason, medical reasons, travel, so on, to return to face-to-face teaching. So that's a challenge for us, especially for those who have classes that want to come back. Our digital skills delivery teams under pressure to keep up with demand, because lots of people want to do digital skills, and we want lots of learners to do digital skills in case we lock down again. Our enrolment is broadly in line with where it was in 1920 pre-pandemic, although at the moment we've got fewer English and maths learners, but we're able to do things like family learning that we weren't able to do last year. But it's a really volatile situation. You know, some learners enjoying online, some are adamant that they want to come back face to face. We've got other people that, you know, that we know will benefit from face to face learning. So that's a real difficult situation we're facing. It's been my worst September, to be honest, since I've been involved in FE for about kind of 18, 19 years. And that's it really. A couple of links for you. Valid, that's their website link, and Rapal, the Research and Practice in Adult Literacy, that's their link there. More details. And that's it.
Lovely, thank you so much, Simon. Well, we've got 2 or 3 minutes before we hand over to Mike, and I think it would be a really nice idea just to answer 1 or 2 questions, but I did put in chat, if you've got any questions for Mike, Hannah or Simon as we go through this, do put them into chat and we'll try our very best to answer all of them. But I've got Katie in chat, Simon, who's saying, you say the most marginalised were hit hardest, and how did this manifest itself? Have these learners returned since some face-to-face provision has come back?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really important point, I think. I mean, I was teaching entry 2. I still teach entry 2. Those learners that I was working with before the pandemic, I managed to keep in touch with them. Some of them, you know, couldn't countenance doing online learning. Just wasn't appropriate for them. They couldn't do it. I managed to keep in touch with them on the phone. As soon as we were able to, I started doing one-to-one support with them. So there was a community centre. They would come and see me for an hour, and I started doing a thing called That Reading Thing, which is my other great invention, great discovery over the pandemic. So these learners that were, you know, dyslexic, struggling with their spelling and reading and writing, so I've managed to stay in touch with them like that. So we've had to adapt our curriculum, and now we are offering one-to-one support alongside their regular functional skills entry 2 classes. So that's been fantastic for them, and that's an example of how our delivery has changed because of the pandemic. I wouldn't have been able to do that. It just wouldn't have been possible. And luckily, we found a way to fund it. I mean, because I'm a manager, we can kind of do that, you know. But I suspect many service providers would say, "Oh my God, you know, one-to-one support, you know, that's not possible in an ACL." But we've managed to find a way. But actually, the progress that they make in one-to-one is just amazing, and I would talk to anybody about how good that kind of provision is as well. But yeah, I mean, and that's been repeated. Other teachers, we had to keep in touch with them, and generally, yeah, most of them have come back, and we've got those classes back face to face. That was my priority. That was my #1 priority, to get those entry level classes, entry 1, new to ESOL, get that provision back face to face.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we've got we're going to go to Hannah and to Mike. We've got 1 question from Alison, and I'll tell you what, you've got some luxury, you've got some time to think about your answer while Hannah and Mike are talking as well. Alison says that Zoom has been excellent for us, but Ed has got a very interesting question. He said, have you got any examples of wow activities that you think really boosted engagement when you were or are still using Zoom, because engagement for them has been something that they found really hard to work on? So I'll leave you with that question to think about. Thank you so much, Simon. We'll come back. I'm sure there'll be more questions for you. Thank you. So I'd like to introduce now Hannah and Mike from Elat. Welcome. Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks, Simon, for that presentation. I think there's a lot of parallels between your experience and ours. Yeah, I'm sure those things will come up, but hopefully we can also offer some slightly different experiences and perspectives too. So I'm Mike. I'm the coordinator of Elat's East London delivery. We have about 800 ESOL students a year, obviously now mixture of online and face-to-face. Hannah, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So morning, everybody. My name's Hannah, and yeah, I'm a tutor at Elat. More recently, actually, an essential digital skills tutor, but I also teach ESOL classes as well.
And the way we're going to do this is Hannah and I are just going to ask each other a few questions to try and simulate a little bit more interactivity, I guess, in this context. But yeah, we'll talk for a little bit, and then there'll be time for questions afterwards, I'm sure. So I'll kick it off. So Hannah, when the first lockdown happened, you were halfway through various different ESOL courses in community venues. And what was the first thing that went through your mind with regards to teaching the students at that point when we heard all of that news?
Yeah, no, thanks, Mike. I suppose, yeah, for me, it was the practical issues around actually getting the students online and overcoming that initial digital barrier, getting the devices out to them, how we would communicate Zoom to them, how they would be able to actually access the classes. And once they did access them, what that would all look like. It was all a bit unclear, as I'm sure many of you can relate. This was particularly prevalent, I think, for our lower level learners. I think we definitely found there was a correlation with lower level learners having lower level IT skills. And also, again, for our elderly learners as well. This was, yeah, a particular concern for me. I was teaching, I think, a pre-entry class at the time in East London, and I was concerned as to how we would be able to continue the class together. So yeah, I think those were the biggest concerns for me.
And how about your feelings as a teacher? Had you done online teaching before?
Yeah, a very, very limited amount. I'd never used Zoom before. Zoom was completely new for me. I had, I think, like many of us during the pandemic, I was desperate to sort of keep myself busy. So I signed up for lots of free online courses myself, not only to keep busy, but also to sort of see how other teachers taught online and borrow some of their ideas as well. But no, prior to the pandemic, I had done no online teaching myself. So it was new grounds for me.
Yeah, it's the same for me. And what did you find most challenging about all of that then?
I think getting the class to a place where they were comfortable with learning on Zoom. I won't forget those first few lessons. It needed a lot of breathing exercises. Just even simple things like being able to use the controls. I remember the first couple of sessions being particularly challenging because there was lots of students all speaking at the same time. Just getting them to be able to learn to do what I would now consider like fairly simple things, like being able to mute and unmute yourself and raise your hand. So all of those things that I had never had to really think about that much before. They were definitely some of the biggest challenges. I also found that students got tired a little bit more quickly and needed more regular breaks. So just important to be aware of those challenges when teaching online. But Elat were great because we adjusted the lengths of the lessons over time. They sort of went from 3 hours to 2.5 hours to 2 hours, and it was constantly sort of changing to adapt to student needs.
And do you think there were any other things that like we decided to do as Elat that helped you in that kind of overcome some of those challenges?
Definitely, yeah. So I think as an organisation, Elat were great in just unifying everybody. There were lots of CPDs and opportunities for meetings on various platforms, fun things for staff to do as well, quizzes, but mainly, yeah, opportunities for staff to get together, share ideas, talk about the difficulties, and just do some troubleshooting together, I suppose. Yeah, lots of CPDs on what works online versus what doesn't work online. I know that for many of the teachers, marking and prep work became a far more lengthy process. So by getting together and discussing things, we were able to just share tips on and how to make online teaching a bit more pleasurable and a bit easier for everybody. I also felt that Elat were great at offering support to staff and students, so access to online mental health platforms, and an ever-evolving curriculum, conversation clubs, and as I mentioned more recently, the introduction of the essential digital skills qualification, to name but a few. Okay, Mike, if it's all right, I'll move on and I'll shoot some questions at you. So let's have a look. Firstly, so Mike, what were some of the things that you think Elat did well?
I would say very similar kind of experience to what Simon was talking about in Islington. I feel like, looking back, pretty proud of the fact that we responded quickly and that our students didn't really miss a week of learning. I mean, there was that sort of transition time when Zoom sessions were kind of a learning experience for the teachers and the learners, but we were able to transition quickly. And then by the end of the academic year, most of our students had managed to complete their courses and get a qualification. And obviously that took like an enormous amount of work at all levels of the organization. And like Simon alluded to, at like management level, that meant a lot of conversation with funders and finding ways to adapt our delivery methods so that they were still they were happy with the outcomes that we were achieving. And I know that was a lot of work, and then accessing additional funding so that we could cover some of the new costs associated with the classes. In terms of working with the learners, we kind of we didn't really have a devices library before COVID. I mean, we occasionally lent laptops to students, but mostly it wasn't something that we did in the ESOL team. And so we had to build that up from scratch and kind of invent systems for kind of taking requests and then finding ways to distribute devices during lockdown when everyone was working from home. The kind of the well-being activities that you talked about, I think, were another thing that like really a lot of people were able to benefit from. And then for as like a teaching team, I'm also a teacher, so yeah, I was also kind of facing these sort of challenges and just moments of discovery myself. But I think it was great that we we all acknowledged that like we were as a team didn't have that much remote teaching experience, and that the only way to learn was like to learn together, try things out, make mistakes together, share our experiences. And I think everyone kind of mucked in, as I think is probably quite a common experience in that at that point in 2020, that kind of everybody felt like they wanted to do what they could in quite a sort of disempowering situation to find a way to actually make a difference. And I think that was reflected in our team.
Great, thanks, Mike. And what factors helped Elat achieve those things, do you think?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, as I mentioned, that sort of like the fact that we all worked together on it and yeah, mucked in. I would say also a couple of other things really. One of them, once we had managed to get the Zoom classes going, I think, at least me personally, but I expect this is a common experience, it was really rewarding to feel like we had overcome that barrier of like what felt like a sort of impossible barrier in lockdown, that we wouldn't be able to reach our students. And then once the Zoom classes got going, there was that, I really felt like such a strength of connection with the students. And I also saw when people were in challenging circumstances, and that like gave me an extra impetus to try and do what I could to like support those people. So I think that kept us going. And then like as an organization, I think we were in quite a lucky position because we're small enough that like we could make quick changes and like change our processes. But at the same time, we were large enough that we did have a bit of an infrastructure to call upon. We could access funds that meant we could buy lots of devices when we needed them. And you know, we have like a great IT support team who were helpful for all of us. So yeah.
Great. And Mike, what do you think we could have done differently as an organisation?
I think we definitely made a lot of mistakes. We were learning from our mistakes basically and starting something from scratch. So I think that I feel like there are so many things that that now we would do differently to how we did back then. I think there is an example of something like we're still sort of struggling with, I think, or trying to work out as an organization is our initial assessment processes and our recruitment processes, because we haven't found a way to make it as time efficient as face-to-face assessment, or even as accurate. And so we found that we've dramatically increased the number of applications we get, because we have this online channel now that people can apply. But this has sort of created a lot of work for our team, for our teachers, and I think also for applicants. The result is our waiting list is longer than it was before, and people have to go through quite a few hoops before they speak to a human being for their speaking and listening assessment. And by that point, it might be that they've decided to go somewhere else, or the course doesn't suit them anymore. So I think we've seen quite a drop in the kind of conversion rate from applicant to student in the classroom or in the online classroom. So I think in terms of something I'd like to do differently going forwards, it would be working that out. And I'd love to hear if other organizations have cracked online initial assessment, really.
Great, thanks, Mike. And how do you know that our interventions actually worked?
Well, measurable things, I guess I could say, is that in that first lockdown, we managed to get 70% of our students to continue with their courses and then complete, which I thought was a great achievement. Since then, I guess our student applications have been up, our numbers of people we've been able to teach have increased, and we're now able to teach people that we wouldn't have been able to reach before through our online classes. People, for example, who wouldn't have previously felt comfortable to using the childcare services that we were able to provide alongside the classes, but now can study from home, for example. And I'd say our feedback has been really good from students who have managed to get on course and completed their qualifications and stuff. They've been really positive about their experience. So yeah, I would say those are things that we can look to. I might throw the question back to you. How do you feel your students responded? I mean, I've said that we got good, generally good feedback, really good feedback. How do you feel that your students responded to your online classes?
Yeah, so I mean, agree, Mike, with a lot of the points that you made, but I think it was fantastic that we were able to get those devices out to them as quickly as we could. And I can say that I remember a time where Mike actually biked a laptop over to one of my students. So well done for that, Mike. But I think, despite the technical difficulties, it definitely offered students a bit of a lifeline in a very, very challenging time. They were able to see their classmates, talk to their teacher, which really massively helped to reduce those feelings of isolation for many of our learners. I think it also provided a really important way to communicate some very important information to the students, just even about the pandemic, and just have a chance to actually talk about how they were feeling. But overall, I think like many of us, some learners absolutely love learning online. They love everything about it. And some of us hate it and can't wait to get back to face-to-face learning.
Yeah. I can see we're running out of time. So I'll just cut to one final question for you, which is what do you think you now do differently because of the move to online learning that you would like to take forward to the future?
Oh, good question. Yeah, thanks, Mike. I'll try and be as quick as I can. But I think, as you were saying, we've made a lot of mistakes, and through that process, learnt a lot. So I think firstly, I know to never assume any level of knowledge. Basic really does mean basic for some of our learners, i.e. how to even switch on a device. And I'd say just we've got to really make time to talk about mental health, pandemic or no pandemic. I think that this actually needs to be integrated into teaching at all levels across the board. Just there should always be an opportunity for us to discuss mental health issues, or at least signpost students towards mental health services. And I think finally, I've been able to discover so many excellent ways to just incorporate technology into the classroom and allow it to actually complement my teaching. And I definitely plan to make use of all of the amazing websites and apps out there that can really help to facilitate learning, engage the students, and develop their technical skills all at the same time. I think, Rachel, I think, are we out of time now?
Yeah, that's absolutely it. Do you know what? Thank you so much, Hannah and Mike. Thank you. That was great. And Simon, do you know, I could feel lots of nods. I can't see many people with cameras on, but I can feel them nodding to most of what you were saying there. There you go, Paul. Yeah, absolutely. And we had some claps and some emojis agreeing with some of the points you made. Particularly that one of those last points that Hannah made there about mental health and the support that is needed and continues to be needed. So thank you so much. We've got some lovely questions that I've been collating from chat. We'll go through those, and then for the last few minutes I would really love to invite some discussion, because there's not just questions, but there's some really interesting points that have been made in chat also. But first of all, this is a question from Marie Wellington to Mike and Hannah. She just wanted to hear a little bit more about your conversation clubs that you referred to. Could you tell us a little bit more about those, please?
Mike, would you like to?
Yeah, sure. I guess through like some of our projects, we have funding to do kind of open informal drop-in conversation clubs, which we had previously been in like different community venues. When the pandemic happened, we moved those online and then kind of streamed them so that we had like a lower level and an intermediate level and a higher level conversation club. They were just weekly drop-in Zoom spaces, and the teachers, Hannah was one of the teachers who's done a lot of conversation clubs, so maybe you could speak about like how you structured the sessions. But what I think was really good is that it has provided a channel for us to offer something to any learner who comes along, whether or not they're eligible for the funded programs that we run. And because they're online, that means that it just means that they're much more accessible than before, and can be a little bit more targeted by being in different levels.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. We have another question from Neil. And Neil asks, what are your views? And I can open it to any of the panel really, but what are your views on using self-directed online learning resources as part of any blended approach to delivery? Simon, did you want to take this?
Yeah, I mean, we've been using, for many years actually, we've been using BKSB for English and maths, and it's been a real important part of our delivery normally. So learners that are able to access BKSB, they may be in a bit of a rush to get their functional skills, level 1, level 2. This time of year we get lots of learners coming in saying, oh my God, they're starting university course, they need to get their level 2 quick. So we stick them on BKSB. They spend as many hours as they want, self-study. They're ready for an exam. Then we do an exam, and then they get off. They get away. That came into its own over lockdown, because we were able to do that. Of course, people need to have the digital skills for it. You need to have the access. You need to be able to do that. But it's worked for us fantastically well as well. And in terms of responding to people with different work patterns, with childcare issues, with all those kind of things, then whisper it. But we had people who were doing functional skills when they were abroad. People that went home. Our IT people here hated the idea that people were connecting from abroad. But we were able to kind of continue to connect with people. So it really worked for us at a particular level, to be honest.
Thank you. Michael, Hannah, did you want to add anything to that?
I think Simon's given a great answer.
No.
So
Brilliant. No worries. And we've got some suggestions and lots of things coming into chat as well. Alison says Corbett Maths and Seneca Learning have some great self-study resources online. So thank you for that, Alison. But some of the points that you were making there, Simon, lead really well onto the next point and the next question, which I'd like to pose to the panel, but also to open it up to discussion, because we've got several people mentioning digital skills, not just for staff and learners, also for learners. We had Lorraine and Alison in particular saying that they supported this, giving some short digital courses, etc. Sal in particular, she asked your opinions on giving short digital skills course before an ESOL course in particular, and the value of it. Is it something, you know, that you've promoted? Who would like to take that one? And then again, I'd love to invite people to come off mute and join in the discussion on this one, really.
Both Hannah and I have actually taught courses like that. So
Brilliant.
Maybe Hannah, do you want to tell everyone about your experience?
Yeah, well, again, it was sort of fairly new to me, but yeah, both myself and Mike taught I think it was called IT for ESOL. It was a bit of a combination of IT skills blended with ESOL learning. We've now evolved to teach the Essential Digital Skills course, which is available to our entry-level learners and our level 1 and above learners, so slightly differentiated curriculums there. And as part of that, we do ask our students to complete a diagnostic assessment, which allows us to see sort of what their levels are, so that we're able to actually place them into the correct level for the Essential Digital Skills course. But we've had a really good response rate. I think students are recognizing the importance of learning essential digital skills, not just for learning, but just for all aspects of life. So I can actually only see that continuing to grow in popularity. Yeah, I think they're great courses, and I think they'll just continue to evolve. Mike, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, the other thing I would say is that the IT for ESOL programs that we've been running have been like a slightly higher level than that kind of. We haven't been using them as a sort of something for new to ESOL students who like have never used a phone before. We've talked about doing that, and we talked about having kind of digital induction sessions which might be face to face, and you know, we show people like the basics of how to use Zoom on a phone or something. But what we found has worked really well is that slightly higher level. So it's like people who can use their phones to study but don't have the kind of skills on a laptop. And so we've been doing a lot of stuff on things like Word, PowerPoint, email. And yeah, really popular. And like as a particularly rewarding example for me, one of my students ended up becoming like an admin volunteer with us after the program, and she's become really great with Excel amongst other things. So like I've seen a lot of progress as well from students.
Super, thank you very much. So Lorraine, I can see you've popped your camera on. Is there anything that you wanted to, because you said, Lorraine Miles, you said that you promote this and that you're providing stuff. Do you just want to share with us, if you don't mind, a little bit about what you're doing?
Yeah, sure, not at all. Like all of you, we found that our ESOL learners also struggle initially, especially the lowest levels, even the higher levels as well. Some of them are just not used to using technology. So all our tutors tried as well to show them what to do during the lockdowns. But we found that some learners who really needed help and they were at a higher level, so our entry 3, level 1 and level 2 learners, we got the tutors to recommend who would benefit from a specific digital skills class. And just basically due to lack of staff, really, we referred them to our work skills department, who and they they came up with a class for them over 2 days, covering the specific skills that they needed, whatever the tutor wanted them to do to be able to use Zoom, how they want them to be able to open up the documents, attach documents, how they want them to fill in, using PDFs, or whether they need to use Word. And then that was really helpful for those learners. And for our entry 1 and entry 2 classes, we started an induction at the center the first week, and then the tutor, with the help of an LSA, showed them how to access Zoom, what they needed to do, and then it went on to e-learning. This was a bit tricky because obviously the first week you don't have a full enrollment, so it's still an ongoing process. So those who are there, they are able to benefit, and then those who are not there, you just have to try and pick it up as you go along. So that's what we tried to do in order to make it easier this year.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. We also managed to get hold of some tablets as well. That has been a little bit of a hit and miss situation, because first of all, if learners say they want to do e-learning, then we ask them, do you have access to a tablet or a computer? Because a mobile phone alone is just not enough. It's just not enough to view the screen. So if they don't have access, then we offer them the loan of a tablet. Connection, they need to have a good connection. For those who don't have a good connection, then we have access to a few, not many, dongles to give internet access. But by and large, to be honest, those who find learning online difficult, they have opted to come to the center. So we have both options for them.
That's fantastic. That's super. Thank you, Lorraine. That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you for sharing. Much appreciated. Okay, we've got a couple of questions, sort of continuing with digital. We've got a couple of questions about the essential digital skills qualifications, in particular, whether or not you're delivering those online or face-to-face. Hannah, Mike?
Yeah, so they're being, well, currently they are being exclusively delivered online. So one of the prerequisites for students taking that course is to prioritise them having a device. So in order to actually complete the content of the course. So I think we've, as an organisation, we've been able to successfully get laptops and tablets out, because as I'm sure you're all aware, it's quite limiting accessing online learning on your phone. It poses many more issues for students, and once they get comfortable with the controls of the laptop, it makes learning a lot more convenient and a lot more comfortable, and they're just able to do more. Mike?
And yeah, last year we chose to do the OCR course, which I don't think is running anymore because it was, which is a shame, but it was completely portfolio based, so students could do it from home remotely without having to take an exam. And I'm not actually sure, Hannah, is your course also this term portfolio based as well?
It's not. It's exam based. It will be a paper based exam and an external assessment as well, where they've got to do a task to demonstrate their computer skills. So very different from our course last term.
Brilliant, thank you very much. There's lots of comments of envy for providers that are being able to get their hands on devices and dongles, and you know, not every provider has been able to do that this year. And yeah, lots of points. If I would encourage everyone to save chat, because there's some fantastic comments in chat and suggestions for courses, ideas for course models, etc. So yeah, definitely do that. I want to sort of just invite everyone to join in for the last few minutes on a conversation about this last year. Particularly, I saw a comment from Chloe, who said that sharing and collaboration has been incredibly important this year. She mentioned one phrase that her colleague has used, saying pinch and personalise, which I think is great, isn't it? And it, you know, it really has meant an awful lot for the sector to be able to share and support each other through this. Lorraine also has mentioned that certain other tools such as WhatsApp groups and being able to return learners' work through WhatsApp groups have also been very effective. So it kind of all rolls back to that question that I posed before about, has anybody got any examples of wow activities? And I actually would like to open it up to the room, to be fair. Anybody who's on the call today, it would be great to hear some really good examples of your activities that you think really work well with online teaching. Has anyone got any examples? Panel to kick us off, or anyone else in the room? This is when it goes quiet.
I'm just happy to kind of say even anything physical. Actually, I think we're all very sedentary at the moment, and quite often we're sat down for just hours on end. So it doesn't have to be for a long period of time, but 5 minutes at the start of the class, just doing a bit of yoga, getting the students to stand up, just again being aware of our bodies and our physicality. Quite often, you know, students are accessing classes on their bed or on the sofa or, you know, in the kitchen, and they're very uncomfortable. So it's just, again, bringing that attention back to the body, breathing exercises. It really engages the students, and I think across all levels, it's been quite successful for me and important.
Lovely, super. Simon?
Yeah, I saw in the middle of lockdown, it just triggered something you said then, Hannah. I did a learning walk. We were trying to do learning walks, how ridiculous. Online learning walk, went into a class, and at the beginning, I think it was entry 2, and the learners were asked to go around their house and bring back something they didn't know the name of. And it was a fantastic vocabulary, you know, the name of in English. So it was a fantastic kind of exercise in vocabulary. And exactly as you were saying, Hannah, it kind of got people running around and doing stuff as well. So, you know, there was a huge variety of things that the learners were bringing back and saying, I don't know, what is this in English, you know? And it was fantastic. That was a really interesting one.
Brilliant. Thank you, Simon. Kathy, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, hi. I was just going to share a punctuation test that we did. I sent the learners off to during the break to find 4 things: 1 yellow, 1 red, 1 blue and 1 green. And they came back, one had a pot plant and one had an octopus, and they were really, really lovely objects. And then I put punctuation, I put sentences on the screen, only one of which was correctly punctuated, and they had to hold up the colour of whichever one was punctuated correctly. They loved doing that, especially when it was a great big pot plant that came up for the right green answer and things. It was lots of fun.
Lovely, really, truly making online learning fun there. Fantastic. Thank you, Kathy. Mike, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was going to give a completely digital kind of approach, but yeah, I love using Google Maps, Google Street, Google Earth, and also using things like online museum, interactive like tours and exhibits. And also I found like it's been really great to have people from those organizations coming and joining us on Zoom. So, you know, had like the British Museum do like ESOL outreach stuff. And yeah, so having people come in, do a virtual tour, or like visiting the students' home countries or something on Google Earth has been really popular with mine.
Brilliant, super, thank you. Now, not saying that none of those ideas were bad, because they were all fantastic and great, but we've got 1 minute and I'm going to leave this discussion with Sal. Sal, I don't know whether or not you're able to take yourself off of mute, because I think you've probably added some of the most innovative and interesting examples into this discussion. Are you there, Sal?
Hi there.
Hello, Sal. I think from just reading what you've put, I'd like to be in your ESOL class. Do you want to tell us about what you've done?
Just lots of silly things, really, just trying to be creative with the space around. So using loads of stuff in the kitchen, how to cook an omelette, how to use the microwave, going on a dog walk, taking the students down the park on a dog walk, just whatever I would do in my daily life, I took them with me and they absolutely loved it.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much. I said you've had some observers saying to you, I thought you were a teacher, what are you doing? But anyway, do you know what? That was a lovely, lovely quick anecdote to finish today's session on. And I'd like to thank all of the panel, Simon, Mike, Hannah. Thank you to everyone that contributed. Sorry if we didn't get round to all of the questions. We're going to have a 10-minute break now. Go and stretch your legs. And then after that, we're going to go back to the main room. And I believe that Roisin has put the link to that into chat, but it's the same link that you had before, I believe. And yeah, thank you so much. ESOL tutors in the room, you didn't disappoint. Aren't we so imaginative and creative? I just love it. That's why I love the sector that we work in. So thank you so much. Round of applause for our speakers today, and enjoy the rest of the conference, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you.